Hey everybody, this is the Interstate of Music podcast, and I am your host, Jeff Peterson, as usual. And today I've got a guest that we're going to get to know. His name is TJ Boyce. He's an artist, a producer, director, all that kind of stuff. But what does he write? What does he produce? What does he direct? I want to get to know this guy. You want to get to know this guy. TJ, welcome to the podcast.
Hey. Thank you for having me.
All right, I'm going to ask a quick question that I've never asked anybody before because it's never happened right before I jump into a podcast. I'm going to ask you because this just happened to me. So, this is my moment in time. When's the last time you were in the bathroom and you had to take the back of the tank off so that you could go reconnect that little chain to the flusher so you could actually flush the toilet? When's the last time that happened for you? Because that just happened to me, TJ.
Man, what's crazy? That hasn't happened in a long time. Nobody's ever asked me that question.
Yeah, why would somebody ask that question?
Yeah. Hey, but you know what? It's one of those things that's like it's a real thing, It really happens,
Yeah, it really happened. And that water is ice cold.
It's
cold,
ice.
Man. It's cold.
It's cold.
Just know that. So, so TJ, I want to get back to kind of, when you were growing up, as far as we talk about you being a producer, director, all that kind of stuff, but that's not when you were a kid, kind of trying to figure out where you thought you were going to go, what you thought you were going to be, where your passions were, where your challenges were. What was that like for you? And what did you think you were going to do? And what were you just trying to kind of get to for a future?
My first love was football. I'm like an athlete first. And, so I grew up in this town called Midland, Texas, West Texas, like football country.
Friday Night Lights, man.
Yeah, Friday Night Lights, man. So that was my life, So I lived between Midland and Houston, but when my parents divorced, I lived with my mother and my brother in Midland, Texas, and I had dreams of being a football player, and I just that was my thing. I can remember times being in my garage, 11th grade, lifting weights at 2 a.m. I really wanted it. I really wanted it. And
what position did you play?
Man, I was being outside linebacker, running back type. But if I would have kept on going, I probably would have been like defensive end outside.
So at what point did you kind of come to your personal realization that you weren't going to play football for a career?
You know what? I honestly just wrapped my head around it. just
last week, Tuesday.
My mind was so gone. I've just here recently kind of wrapped my head around it's football. It's over. It's a wrap. I'll never play again. But no, I think somewhere in college, the music thing started happening. But I always had in the back of my mind, and this is something that I try to tell people. We always think that we have time, I'll get back to that. I'll get back to that. So I always felt like I would come back to football, but life. There's this thing called life that we live, and sometimes there's other things or other circumstances, and the game is just changed so much, So taking a couple of years off is like crazy,
Yeah, it's like taking 20 years off nowadays. I mean, the bigger, faster, stronger thing is real, and it's tough. So you talked about college and the music thing coming in. Did you go to college in Texas? Did you stay close to home?
I stayed close to home. I did. I went to college in Houston. Went to Texas Southern University. And some things started happening for me that I moved to Los Angeles, and that's where I really got the got my music business.
So how did you decide, or how did you get a connection that music became a thing for you? I mean, were you doing any kind of personal music, doing your own thing, and presenting it to people to hear what you were putting out there? Or were you helping somebody? What was that step in? What were you doing to try to get into the music business?
Well, I recorded my first recording is when I was in high school. So I got a record deal offer in high school
Wow.
My parents really didn't take it seriously. They didn't think it was a good move for me. I did the deal. So, but when I moved to LA, I started doing some things, writing, producing for some other artists, and I just started just coming up through the ranks, rubbing shoulders, and things just started happening. And one thing led to another. I came back to Houston, started my own independent production record company, and I've been independent.
So who are some of the people that you found that you were able to connect with in the music industry that you kind of thought, how did I like it? Who were you sitting in a room with that you're like, I don't know how I'm sitting in the room with this person or having this opportunity, and and tell me that first, and then I've got a follow-up question I want to ask you about that.
So, and I'm sat in the room with like Kenny Babyface Edmonds, Dr. Dre, P Diddy, yeah. Okay.
So what those? I mean, that's not just like sat in the room with a Joe Smith. You probably don't know him. No, like
Right.
those are like as soon as you say Babyface and P Diddy, like immediately everybody's like, no shit. Like that's like. So how did you? Like what did you do? What was the drive that you had that made you feel as though I don't want to say deserved or let's call it earned a
Mhm.
spot to have a conversation or have that moment in time? What did it take for you to be so driven to care so much about your passion and turn it into that?
I think it's really you got to always stay ready. You got to stay ready. You got to be ready to meet the call. And I've been blessed to have opportunities. Those opportunities not I've been able to deliver, and that's how I feel like earn the right to be, and but it's one of those things you got to stay ready. You got to be ready at any time because I feel like my phone can ring at any time and it could be who knows, and I want to be ready.
And you know what? A lot of people don't, I talk to a lot of people. I interview a lot of people just within business. I talk to a lot of people that work with me and for me. And I've got to be honest with you, I've never looked at it as simplistic as you just said it. And when you talk about being ready, because I just watched that Kurt Warner movie about the underdog kind of football story of him bagging groceries and then all of a sudden gets this
Yeah.
call coming out of arena football. And it was having a passion and keeping yourself positioned for that next step, even if you don't know how you're going to get to it, but being ready in
Right.
case it shows up. That is it sounds so simple, but I
Yeah.
don't think a lot of people think about it.
No, I don't think so, man. And actually, one of the hardest things, discipline is so hard. We all want six pack abs. We all want, but
You
it's
mean
like
this
the
this you mean this quarter barrel's not good enough?
hey man, I mean, it could be, but for some, it's like everybody wants, I mean, we all have dreams, we all have desires, but it's the dedication and discipline. The discipline is the really tough part. That barrel that you speak of. I know that you know how to get it off if you really really want it off.
Yes,
But do you have the discipline to stick
to
to it?
do it.
That's
Yeah.
that's the whole thing.
It's true. You talked earlier about 2 a.m. being in your garage lifting for football. And it's those things within us that we all have different goals, we all have different purposes that we believe we should like be doing, but we always expect somebody having to come and take us to the next place versus us being responsible for getting to that next place. And I think what you're talking
Right.
about is being disciplined enough to know what our responsibility is in that in
Yeah.
that goal in that goal.
Absolutely. I think that I believe that all of us, have everything that we need already inside of us. I think, a lot of times we're looking for somebody to, looking for somebody to take us to the next level or to get us that next promotion or get us that next hand up. I think we're all equipped with things that we need. We just have to recognize them and then learn how to utilize them.
What are some I totally agree with that. It's kind of, having that self pride and that self purpose and realizing that we do have a value to go someplace. It's just a matter of kind of, dialing it in. And
Yeah,
but you don't have to be completely realistic. You can still have, a little bit of a highlighted dream aspect of what your goals are, because it pushes us to go a little bit further. But
absolutely.
I think self-assessment is important in that process too.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And as driven as I am, I know when I'm not really dialed in, and sometimes it just, sometimes it takes that, sometimes for some people it may take some event, some people take some loss, or just sometimes you just got to wake up, and just, hey, I'm tired of this situation. I'm tired of that. I'm gonna go for it. Let me dial in and take it, and that's what it's all about.
Who have been some of your, the word mentor and inspiration? It's a little bit probably overused. It's probably something that everybody asks everybody as they're moving through. But what were some of the moments in time, or the people that you've crossed paths with, even if it was for a fleeting moment, that you've found inspirational to you, to kind of, that you keep looking back on as kind of that ability to kind of keep you motivated? What are some of those moments or people?
I think that I had some. I've been blessed to have some great, mentors in my life. My parents. My father was a pastor. My mother was, my mother was actually in entertainment early in her life. And they uh, gave me the belief that I could do anything. They tricked me into thinking that I could really, really do anything. And I bought into it, and
Yep.
and I think that just having that foundation has been one of the biggest driving factors in my life and my success, and continued you know drive to be the best that I can be. And I've had other people come into my life. I've had coaches. I've had had friends here and there. But I would say that my parents have really, really, really kind of made me believe be all that I wanted to.
I have had different people that I've talked to, and when it comes to kids of pastors, I'm not gonna lie. There is something about being a pastor's kid that
Yeah,
it seems like it can go two directions, one really
yeah, yeah,
bad
absolutely.
or
Yeah,
one really good. It doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of in between.
yeah,
What
yeah.
did that feel like to you? And at any given moment of being a pastor's kid, did it sometimes feel like too much?
Sometimes, I mean, sometimes I felt like, you know, uh, because I'm not my father. I'm not a pastor. I believe in God. You know, pray, but I cuss.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm, so I'm what the church would call, I can be worldly, and I had to just kind of accept, hey man, I'm me, and my dad, that's him, and we lived in a different time. My father was, I was when I was born, my father was 48. So me and my father were, we from different, time periods,
Yeah.
and we were very, very different. Times are different, and but I think my father, he's deceased now. My father was really proud of me, and we had real, had great talks. I'm so I was blessed to be raised by someone that granddad. He was just like really, really always wise, always, talk really slow. Hey, turn your phone off, son. And I took those talks, and I really applied it to my life. And yeah, sometimes I did. It was a bit heavy because I felt like, hey, I'm not just when I'm out here, I'm not just representing myself. I'm representing my father, his legacy. parents and
the
everything.
community. There's just this weight of community because it's so that
Yeah,
the church and the pastors, sometimes it can be such a center core to so many
yeah,
families in the community. So that's where that weight can sometimes come for a kid.
yeah. But I'm I've grown, and I think that you know there's definitely a distinction between my father and I, but I think that I'm carrying on his legacy in a great way, and I'm going to continue to do that. And
I can
great.
sense I can sense the foundation in you. And that's
Oh
what's
yeah,
so
thank
cool about
you.
getting to know you just in this short period of time is I can sense this strength of foundation, this strength
Mhm.
of support. But you know, I mean, we all go through the challenges, but it's if you've got that foundation to be able to kind of look back on and feel, you can get through pretty much anything.
Yeah, and I think that that's very important, especially in a time like today. Think about how society where we are now. I think that that foundation really keeps me grounded and keeps me pushing forward and keeps me, just really lets me see just how far off we are. Just socially. We're in a place that looks, I don't know, I don't know, it's future. I don't know. New generations is very,
It's
very saddening.
it's a time that we've all got to sit back and question what's going on, what our viewpoints are,
Right,
and build from there. It's almost like we're in a time that we're being, it's being so thrown in our faces in every direction, and
yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
and we've got to internalize it before we can externalize it, in my opinion, just simply because
Right,
we've got to be way more compassionate as a community and as a people. And we've
yes,
just got to understand that the differences in all of us is the strength of what we are as communities. And I
right.
think it's been a time that I've kind of looked at as wow, we can come out of this a lot stronger, even though it feels so broken and divided right now.
Yeah,
But it's about the future more than any given moment in time, right?
right. Absolutely, absolutely. It's a crazy new world that we're in. Though things look, especially like when we look at like with the coronavirus, just things that are happening. It's like, man, what the hell where are we going from here? But I still am very I still believe, I still believe that,
Yeah.
we will overcome and be be for the better. I believe that, it looks,
With challenge and it comes opportunity,
yeah,
and comes a different way of thinking. And if we just kept, it, it taught us that hey, go back. As simple as this, it taught us to remember about, you know, go wash your hands. You know,
go wash your hands.
go wash your
Yeah,
hands. But
yeah,
I say that in a way of saying it's also gotten us to think about what should be simplistic in the way we are as people that we
right, right.
have let the world kind of let us go astray and not care about the simplicity of that viewpoint and the way that we should be. So as simple as it is to remind us to wash our hands, it's reminded us to, you know, stop being assholes. You know,
Yeah, right, right, right.
it's like we've got to
Yeah,
start caring about everybody.
absolutely,
Um,
absolutely.
so what is new? What is next? What do you got? What do you got cooking? As far as what you want to be, what you want to do, and what's going on with you right now?
So I have a single that's out right now. It's doing well. Trust Nobody. It's featuring Boosie Badass, and the record's doing very well. And I uh, I want to continue to release more music. I really want to put more music out. Play my artistry. I filmed a movie this past summer that I'm really really excited about. Wonder London. It's a adventures hero type of film, starring my daughter. My daughter's an actress. She's 9 years old now. She was in Antebellum. If you ever saw Antebellum with Janelle Monae, my daughter is the little girl that plays Janelle Monae's daughter in that movie. So
Oh
Wonder
wow,
London is her movie. Yes, and my son who's also an actor. He has a movie coming out this summer. It's a Disney film called Crater. So we got we have a lot of things coming, and I'm just really, really excited about everything. And, looking forward to just doing more.
And so, you're just proud dad right now. You're just hashtag
Absolutely.
proud dad.
Proud dad, man. Yeah. So, it was always, I've always been an artist, always been into music. But when I became a father, and then my, children just so happened to take this direction, because it's definitely not the direction that I led them in. It's just this is the icing on the cake for me. I'm excited about, being in this moment. It's just really exciting.
And
I can't say more.
in an unbelievably social media focused world, whether it's YouTube, Instagram, TikTok is off the charts right now as far as what's going on. How are you getting you out there for people to see and pay attention and follow? And what is that? Are you able to stay authentic through it all? Have you been able to find that center of it, and still navigate through the crazy of it?
I'm still navigating through the crazy of it, because honestly, who I am as a person, I'm a private guy. I'm not, so I'm not such a social media posting everything every moment of my life. That's really not who I am. So I'm having to learn to, okay, let me create content. And so that's been the thing that's kind of like, it doesn't feel as authentic, but I stay true to who I am, and I'm becoming more and more. I put stuff. I have things on YouTube. I put things on Instagram. I just got a TikTok recently, so it's.
I can't wait to see. I can't wait to see some of that TikTok.
Yeah, I know, right? It's fun. It's just again. I'm naturally, I'm just kind of more private. I'm not like a guy like, hey, let me show you what I'm eating this morning. That's just
right.
Not really who I am.
Well, TJ, do me this favor, and you don't have to do it, but I'm going to say this about what I've gotten to know about you. I think there's so much of who you are as a person, your upbringing, your the way that you present yourself, and the motivation and inspiration about who you are and the integrity that you carry. Put that out there, because I think there's so much of that that's missing
Yes.
from people of influence and people that are in the industry and doing the things that you're in. So many are out there trying to be what everybody else wants them to be or thinks they should be. And I think for you to come through in a grounded format, I think it's going to stand out in the crazy.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people just want to get to know who you are, what you've done, and share some of that story. So, take it for what it's worth. But man, I'd be a follower.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that, and that's what I am really about, man. I want to show people that that there's so many different ways to do it, to cut it, to make it, and there's a lot of things that are going on in our society that are popular, but I just things that I don't necessarily agree with. I'm totally, trying to do my own thing in my own way and show people like, hey, this is something that's a little different.
Well, TJ, I've really gotten, this has been really enjoyable for me to get to know you, and thank you for being on the podcast and sharing a little bit about your journey and your story. And I certainly want to, share it out there so people get a chance to know who you are, what you're up to, and stay in touch, man. This has been great. I love. Congrats on everything that you've done, and best of luck to your kids and everything else that they've got in front of them. And it's just great to kind of hear the way you've been doing it. So thanks for being part of the Interstate Music Podcast and sharing everything that you got cooking.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'd love to come back sometime.
That's awesome. Everybody, this has been TJ Boyce. This is Jeff Peterson, the host of the Interstate Music Podcast. Peterson out.